My name is Gates Ogilvy. I'm in my second year of the Communications Bachelor. Well, I actually initially started off in film because I wanted to be a writer, but I also wanted to get paid. Um, and then I was like, kind of just realized film in the industry in general wasn't for me, and so I decided to kind of just go for the siren call of communications and like going into publishing and writing, and I'm gonna try my best to do it. Basically. I actually got involved with the Courier through Matt Shipley. We knew each other from a creative writing class, and I was like, hey, can you like help me with my novel? And we just got to talking, and I was like, I would love to like be a part of like the Courier. Like it kind of just came up. And then before I knew it, I had an interview, and now I'm here. I think like my experience being edited, uh, like a lot of my experience up to that point was being already getting feedback from creative writing. So like I wasn't new at all to getting feedback and being edited in that way. And so I think it's like it was kind of like helpful experience to like have all like this like kind of writing community experience beforehand, because like I know like as an editor how it feels to get feedback, and like especially like in some wording, like if they're just like no, I'm like, oh, that like hurts, like you try your best and you put everything you have into like a piece, and a lot of the time it's like a reflection like of you and like your stories and your experiences, so it can feel really like difficult to kind of have that be like, oh well, this isn't like working for like the reader, but like after like being an editor, it kind of helps to also know the other side of like we're just trying to help and we're just trying to like make it the best it can be, and like I think like the most of like my writers, and I think they're all like great writers. I don't hold little mistakes or anything against them. Yeah, I think a lot of what inspires me to write is honestly just like not having the characters and the worlds that I wanted to see in reading, and so like especially like I grew up queer in Alberta, and there was not a lot of me in Alberta, and so it was kind of just like writing was my way to like express that part of myself while also like celebrating that part, like that identity that just wasn't celebrated where I'm from. Um, so yeah, I write a lot of what I don't see and what I want to see more of, I guess. So I started writing when I was like a little kid, like basically since the point that I could, I started writing, and so obviously like it's evolved so much over the past like over a decade now. And when I was a bit younger, I would look back at like the novels I tried to write when I was 12 or whatever, and I think they're so embarrassing, and like they're so like obviously from a perspective of someone who just didn't understand what the world was like at all, but was trying their best to. Um, but now I kind of look back at them and I'm like, oh, this is like where I came from, and I was just a kid like doing what I loved, and like I think there's merit in a story that's bad. And so I try to be nice to my younger writing self, and I've kind of gotten to a point where even now, like the stuff that I wrote like a year or two ago, I can see that it's different, and like my style has evolved since then, but I don't think it's bad necessarily. I think it's just different. My editor voice has definitely evolved so much over the past couple semesters. I started out in like I knew kind of what I wanted articles to sound like, but like I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest. Like it was kind of like a trial by fire, just like go for it, try your best kind of thing. And so I think now I've kind of eased up a little bit on like what I think articles should sound like. I'm trying to embrace like the writer's voice a lot more. I think it was hard coming from like being just solely a writer is like I I had like an idea of like what the voice should look like because it was mine, and like now I'm like, oh well, my writer voice isn't like the only one out there, and it shouldn't be. And I hope to kind of be more of an editor that elevates other people's voices rather than just imposing my own. So I think I've definitely evolved in that way, and I'm also still working on it. The Liar's English 396. It's essentially a class where you're on a team and you work together to produce the Liar Literary Journal. And so we do like editorial work, and we read a bunch of pieces, and we do a lot of design. So the Liar was huge in like allowing me to be on both sides of the contest, because like I had been the writer who submitted to everything everywhere and got nothing back. Like I have a lot of experience in losing contests. And so being on the other side of it, I was like, it just helped me realize like, oh, like there's so many pieces, and there's so much talent out there that like of course it's impossible to choose, you know, a finite number to include, and like it does not mean that the people who weren't chosen are like bad writers in any way. Like I think that was kind of an idea that I held on to, where it's like, oh, every contest I lose, like it's because it was a bad piece of writing, and that's not true. So yeah, it's just like it kind of, you know, helped me realize just like how much work goes into it, and like the editors who are choosing pieces and making these decisions, they aren't like bad people and they're like judgmental people. They're just like, they read a lot. You know, there's a lot out there. So everyone at the Liar remains anonymous. Like all the pieces, we don't know who, unless they put their names on it, which don't do that. Like if you're gonna submit to the Liar, don't put your name on it. It's supposed to be anonymous so that the people who are making the decisions can also submit their own pieces, and it's not like biased, because of course you want your own team to get into the literary journal. I mean, you just know them and you like them. So yeah, all the pieces completely anonymous until like the very end, until we know which ones we want in, and then we get to see who wrote them, which is a lot of fun. Each piece that we gets like several readers. It goes through several rounds, and so not one person is kind of making the decision on whether it gets to be in or not. And the only person who knows who wrote everything is the instructor. So it kind of stays really fair across the whole process through that way. So the final decision for each piece comes down to an instructor from CapU who like is the judge for that issue. And so there's usually like a design judge and then a writing judge, and they take our finalists and kind of decide out of what we thought was the cream of the crop who the winner should be. So my piece was chosen, and I remember our instructor Leah like just brought it up on screen, and she was like, this one was by Gates, and I was like, what? Like I'm one of them? It was such a weird moment, because like that was the first time I'd ever won or like been selected for like a contest, and so I honestly didn't like feel anything in the moment. I was just like so shocked and like surprised and confused. I was like, I can't believe like people actually liked this piece. And then like later when I went home, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe people like this piece. Like I was so excited. So yeah, it was a crazy moment for me, for sure. So my piece is called Hom Mom-Made. It's essentially about kind of growing up with a perfect imperfect mother, and how, you know, my mom both really formed my world and what like home means to me, but she was also not always there, because she had, you know, a job, and it took her across the country, and she had to leave on work trips a lot. And so it was kind of like, what does it mean to have a home formed around one person, and what does it mean when they leave, and what does it mean when you have to leave? And that those kind of themes are expressed through the environment and through the surroundings. To be honest, it wasn't that hard to share at first, because I didn't think it would get chosen. Like I was like, okay, a few like people will read it and then that'll be that. I didn't really think about the long term, what would happen if it made it into the issue. And so now I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, like not only is it in there, I'm also gonna have to like read it to like a room full of people at the lunch party. And I'm not, I don't know how I feel about that. I think I'm glad that my mom's not going to be there because I don't even know how to explain the piece to her. I had one editor for my piece. It was like a classmate of mine. And it was super easy working with her. I think she was overall just like so supportive and like really loved the piece. And so I think all of her comments came with like a, hey, like, if you want to change this, go ahead, but you don't have to because I think it works exactly the way it does. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, this is such a nice, like, little ego boost. But I love getting, like, feedback on creative pieces especially. And, like, one of my favorite parts was actually hearing about, like, what everyone else kind of interpreted my piece as, because obviously I wrote it with, like, a specific mom in mind, but everyone else kind of took it in different ways to, like, apply it to their own families. And so I thought that was just so interesting, like how the same piece could be interpreted in so many different ways by so many different people. I thought that was kind of special and fun. I'm working on a huge writing project at the moment. It's about a decade in works. It's been a long time. It's on its 11th draft. I mean, a lot of that time was also procrastination. It hasn't been 11 years of just, pedal to the metal with it, but yeah, it's been a long time coming. I think obviously since it's been, I've been working on it for such a long time, like, my process in writing this novel it really, like, shows, like, my growth, like, as a writer and, like, just how I like to do things. And so my very first draft, I wrote it how I wrote all my first drafts, like, at that time, where I just, like, word vomited out onto the page, and then, like, 100 or so pages later, I was like, all right, it's done. Yeah, and so I went through a lot of, like, rewrites just doing that, and then I got to high school, and, like, my process changed. I started to plan a little bit more, and so I started to kind of work out, like, character charts and outlining charts, but I was still kind of using the kind of 3-point structure, like beginning, middle, end, and fill out all the points in between. And then actually film school is what, like, changed my writing process the most, because I went into screenwriting and basically took a lot of inspiration about how we, like, craft characters and, like, plot from how screenwriters do it. And I found that to be, like, super helpful. And so now I plan everything. I don't word vomit anymore. It just does not work for me. And I create characters kind of based off, like the screenwriting method, and I use the, like, movie outline. And so I plot everything on a movie outline. And that works, like, so much better. I can't believe I used to do, like, just, like, random stuff before. I can't imagine trying to write a novel. I mean, it works for some people, but it does not work for me. I'm not organized enough to hold it all in my head at once. I mean, I say this every single draft, but I think I'm nearing the end here. I have, like, the structure down, I have the characters down, I have the outline down. I just need to write it good and then do some, like, edits and, like, get some readers, and then once that's through, I think it'll be done. I'm hoping to get it done, honestly, by the end of this year, but we'll see. Well, my immediate afterwards, after I finish it, is I'm getting a tattoo. That's, like, my big reward. It's been 10 years of writing it. I think I deserve to spend more than a rent's worth on a tattoo afterwards. And then after that, I'd really love to get it traditionally published. It's gonna be hard. I think I'm gonna try to get an agent. We're gonna see how it all goes. That would be my most, like, ideal, but ultimately I've written it so that it leads into a sequel, and a lot of the time traditional publishers don't want to publish an author straight away and, like, get a sequel straight away because they don't know if it's going to work out. Um, so we'll see. I think if all else fails, I would self-publish it maybe, or just hold on to it for a little while until I can get it traditionally published. But we'll see. Yeah. I think it's pretty integral to have a writing community. I think, they say like writing is like a very solitary career, and I guess like technically while you're sitting at your computer, it's a solitary career, but so is an office job if you really think about it like that. I think at no point in the writing journey should you like be alone in it. I've had a writing friend for over a decade now. I met her in grade 5, and like since then we send our drafts back and forth to each other, and we get feedback and we like talk about it. And like she's like kind of the biggest reason why I'm still writing today. Just because having someone else to be there to like encourage you and like kind of keep you like disciplined, or like keep you on track with your draft is like so important, at least to me. And I think also it's just like it's hard to write and avoid other writers can be like inspiration, or like they can, help you with like brainstorming or whatever. So it definitely makes it easier to have a writing community for sure. I think the Courier counts as a writing community. I think so. Because like at any point during like your Courier journey, you can kind of reach out to other people and be like, hey, I really need support in this, or like I'm really struggling with this. And there's always someone who will be there to like kind of help you. Someone who's just starting the writing journey, I would say just keep going. It's gonna be really hard at first because you're gonna feel like everything you write is awful and doesn't deserve to exist, and you're gonna feel really like maybe discouraged from like feedback you get, and it's like the hardest part is kind of getting through that initial barrier of like, this is brand new to me, and I don't really have the instincts for it yet. And like those instincts, like it's all a time game. It just comes with time. You just need to like push through, keep doing it. Find your support networks, find the people who are going to encourage you even if it is bad. Because sometimes you need like a mom who will be like, this is amazing, sweetie, like keep going. Yeah. Don't give up, and don't let other people's opinion on how you should do things impact you too much. Like I plan everything personally, but if like they call it pantsing, if you just like go straight forward and you just write like the wind, and if that works for you, then do that. You don't need to. Writing is like different for everyone, and it's gonna look different for everyone. So you don't need to kind of fit like this like standard or like perfect model of the writer. I definitely think it's easy to kind of fall into like, I want to write something people will want to read, and like there is like, obviously we do that a lot at the Courier because we write for our student body, but especially in like creative writing or like personal writing, like I would say like if you try to write a novel just based purely on what other people are interested in, you're probably not going to finish that novel because it's not going to be interesting to you. I think one of the most important parts about like a big creative project like that is like just having your whole heart in it and having all your passions in it, and like when things get hard you can be like, well, I really want this like novel to exist because like I need it. So I write, when I write creatively, I write what I want and what I like, and I don't really worry too much about what's like marketable or what's like publishable. And maybe that'll, bite me in the ass later on, and someone's like, oh, no one wants to read this. But like I'm having fun with it, and I enjoy what I do.